Can you lend me money to go to the hospital?
An 8-year-old grandson came to our house in the middle of the night. Moreover, he was dragging his feet as if he was in pain. It takes over an hour to walk from his house to ours, even for an adult. What on earth happened? When I looked, blood was oozing from all over his body where it was scraped. With fatigue and pain, my grandson's eyes were vacant, and he seemed about to collapse.
Absolutely not lending.
My husband shouted at the poor child. He got angry and went somewhere. And after that, I was trembling with both my body and mind at my husband's unexpected behavior. I'm Melissa, 60 years old, living with my husband. My son and his wife live in a neighboring town, which is about an hour's walk from our house. The train service is poor, so a car is essential for transportation. My daughter-in-law Margaret is 6 years younger than my son, and they have an 8-year-old son named Anthony. Until now, my son Christopher often brought his son to our house, so I had been taking care of Anthony since he was a baby. On the other hand, my daughter-in-law rarely came, and I told my son to bring him over. However, Margaret seems to have been devoted to housework and child-rearing, and she wanted to make time for herself from now on. Furthermore, my son said,
Margaret is very domestic and takes good care of us.
He seemed to be very satisfied with the current state of their marriage. From here on, even if I am a mother, I cannot interfere, I told myself that, and let them do as they pleased. However, at that time, I didn't think at all that such a tragedy would strike later. That was when my son was promoted and decided to work overseas 6 months ago. Christopher, who is a doting family and doesn't want to be separated from his family even for a moment, wanted to leave America with his family. However, his wife expressed her opinion on that matter.
Anthony has already started going to elementary school and has friends. It's cruel to transfer him.
Of course, my son tried to persuade her. However, he was pushed by his wife and left for overseas alone with a heavy heart. And sadly, at the same time, Anthony stopped coming to our house. I had repeatedly asked Margaret to let us see Anthony, but every time she made excuses and refused. Still, I couldn't give up and begged her on the phone to let us see him even for a moment. Then Margaret became more and more angry and started to scold me.
I can't stand having to worry about you guys when my husband is not here. Do you want to monitor me?
No, I don't mean that. I just want to see Anthony's face for a short time at the entrance.
Don't you understand that I don't want that? If you keep insisting, I'll tell Christopher to scold you.
As soon as she said that, the call was abruptly disconnected. It seems hopeless no matter what I say. Maybe my daughter-in-law is just like that. My son had informed me by email that he was having a hard time working and sleeping in his new assignment. I didn't want to worry Christopher anymore, so I decided to wait until he returned home. And before I knew it, more than half a year had passed since I last saw Anthony. My husband and I looked at Anthony's photos every day to ease the loneliness of not being able to see him. Edward's favorite was a group photo of Anthony's entrance ceremony. According to Edward, Anthony's nervous face was cute. One night, around 9 o'clock, the doorbell rang suddenly, and I opened the door.
Can you lend me money to go to the hospital?
What? My 8-year-old grandson suddenly appeared. What happened?
My foot hurts and I can't sleep at night, so I tried to go to the hospital by myself. But this is all I have.
When Anthony slowly opened his palm, there were 3 10-cent coins. Apparently, my grandson came here dragging his feet in pain for over an hour.
I fell on the way.
Both of my grandson's knees were scraped and bleeding. However, I couldn't understand it at all no matter how much I thought about it. I tried to invite Anthony into the house and listen to his story slowly. Then, my husband, who had been silent until then, suddenly spoke up.
Absolutely not lending.
What are you talking about? Are you okay? Our grandson is in such trouble. I got angry at Edward's cold attitude and instinctively grabbed his sweatshirt with both hands and shook him. However, my husband pulled my hand away with great force, said nothing, and ran out of the house with a demonic face.
I'm sorry. Because I came here? I'll go home now.
My grandson completely shrunk and turned his back on me, and then put his hand on the doorknob of the entrance. Anthony, don't worry about your grandfather. I'll take you to the hospital properly, so don't worry. I immediately called an ambulance and also called my daughter-in-law. However, I couldn't get through to her at all, and the message wasn't even read. Then, 20 minutes later, the ambulance finally arrived while we were waiting. My grandson was transported to a nearby hospital, and I accompanied him. Anthony was diagnosed with a fracture by a doctor later. He was treated and instructed to rest at home. What is Margaret doing at a time like this? Even at this point, I still couldn't contact my daughter-in-law, so I decided to take my grandson home with me. Would you like something warm to drink? Come to think of it, you liked honey tea. I'll prepare it now, so Anthony, sit in that chair and wait. As soon as I arrived home, I boiled water. Then, my grandson suddenly approached me. Oh dear, you have to sit quietly.
No, Grandma. Listen to me.
At that time, I was told a shocking truth by Anthony. My grandson, who confessed everything, had big tears in his eyes. I see. It was tough. But you can relax now. I hugged him tightly as if to wrap him up gently. And after that, I was informed of an unexpected event by an unexpected person. Those guys who made Anthony feel this way, they won't get away with it. The flames of revenge burned fiercely within me. The next day at noon, my daughter-in-law finally answered the phone. Anthony broke his foot and was treated at the hospital. Anthony is now at home. Apparently, if we let him rest at home and feed him nutritious food, he will recover quickly.
What? Then please let you take care of Anthony for a while. You must be happy to be able to take care of your grandson plenty after not being able to see him until now.
I said, I understand, and hung up the phone without any further explanation. I had no intention of returning Anthony to that house. Even if Margaret told me to come and pick up the child now, I was determined to keep my grandson by my side, so her response was just what I wanted. However, I was angry at her attitude as a mother. But I didn't want to ruin my plan by getting stuck in such a place. After that, while supporting my grandson, I ran around here and there for punishment, and finally everything was ready. Watch me, I'll make them scream right here today. 1 week after Anthony came to my house, I left him at home and attacked my daughter-in-law's house with someone.
What? What's going on? I'm in trouble because you came suddenly. Please go back.
I borrowed the key to their house from Anthony. Margaret was screaming, but I ignored her and checked the room. I wonder if someone was here until a while ago? When I looked, the room was generally tidy, but the sheets on the bed in the bedroom were abnormally messy.
Please stop it. I'll call the police.
Oh, Margaret, don't you have the right to say that? I heard everything from my grandson. Apparently, you leave him alone and go out to play at night.
I told him not to tell anyone, even though it was so hard.
Actually, what my grandson tearfully told me the other day was about this. According to Anthony, one day, when he caught a cold and felt lonely alone, he tried to stop his mother from going out at night. Even so, you pushed Anthony and went out to play. He hurt his ankle when he fell. My grandson always had been told by his mother.
Don't tell anyone, including your dad, what you were scolded for at home. Otherwise, you'll skip meals.
However, on that day, Anthony couldn't bear the pain anymore and thought that his always kind grandparents might be able to help him. He relied on his memory and dragged his painful foot to our house. If you have money to buy branded items, take your grandson to the hospital. When I opened the closet, it was packed with obviously expensive bags and clothes. My grandson had confided in me that his mother always had beautiful clothes and bags, but was indifferent to him. I had a pretty good idea that Margaret's personal belongings were full of flashy luxury items.
I was trying to distract myself from the loneliness of Christopher's absence by shopping. So, your son is also responsible.
Margaret pointed at me. Then, a low voice was heard from behind me.
Shut up, I saw the affair scene with my own eyes.
The speaker of those words was none other than my husband. He had stormed into Margaret's house with me. On the day when my grandson came to us seeking help, Edward had shouted that he wouldn't lend money and had gone somewhere. At first, I felt angry at Edward for his behavior. However, his anger at that time was directed towards Margaret. He had become too angry and had said something like that without even realizing it himself. Also, Edward had gone to Margaret's house after leaving ours.
I saw you getting into a car driven by a man at that time. Moreover, it was clear that the person was the teacher who had taught Anthony when he was in the first grade of elementary school.
My husband remembered the face of the teacher who had taught the class at that time because he had looked at the group photo of Anthony's entrance ceremony every day. Actually, the event that someone had informed me of after my grandson had confided in me was the secret meeting between Margaret and his former homeroom teacher. I heard from the affair partner that you wore revealing clothes and made passionate advances to him during a parent-teacher conference. Based on my husband's testimony, I went to Anthony's school and questioned his former homeroom teacher. According to the affair partner, he knew it was wrong, but he lost to Margaret's temptation when Anthony's year changed and Anthony's class was separated. The former homeroom teacher repented and agreed to pay compensation without any resistance. He had already submitted his resignation and promised to return to his hometown without ever seeing Margaret again. You said it was for the child, but did you actually stay in America because you didn't want to be separated from that man?
No, that's not it.
I pointed out to my daughter-in-law that she didn't take Anthony to the hospital because she thought it would be bad if it was revealed that she had pushed him and caused him injury, and that she didn't take Anthony to the hospital because she was afraid that my son, who was adoring his son, would stop giving her an allowance if he found out. Then, probably because I had guessed the truth, Margaret couldn't hide her agitation and looked around nervously. However, after a short pause, she said,
If I cry and beg, Christopher will forgive me.
Then she opened up.
He's so in love with me.
Margaret. Stop it.
Oh, Christopher, when did you come back?
My son, who had been informed of everything by me, had returned home hastily to confirm the truth with his own eyes. And because Margaret might pretend to be someone else if he was there, Christopher had secretly watched everything from the shadows.
I heard everything. I can't forgive you anymore. Your attitude towards Mom is too terrible. I'm divorcing you.
Wait a minute. It was just a moment of weakness. Besides, Anthony is only 8 years old. It's obvious that he needs his mother.
I met Anthony earlier, and he said he doesn't need a terrible mother like you anymore.
Despite receiving the final blow from my son, the wife apologized and hoped for a reunion. However, my son firmly refused, and the wife turned to me with a sharp look and bared her teeth.
It's your fault that he left me. How are you going to take responsibility?
That's your own fault. And I heard that you thought Christopher was a cash cow from the beginning. I had been investigating her by phone based on the guest list of the wedding to see if she had any misdeeds. And I'll make sure to tell your parents about this too.
Stop it. My dad hates crooked things. If they find out about this, I'll be disowned by my parents. Then who will take care of me?
You're an adult now, so you should work.
I absolutely hate that. I've been living a leisurely life as a housewife with Christopher's salary all this time, so I don't want to work now because it's miserable.
My husband and son were speechless and amazed at her selfishness. At least suffer and reflect on your actions.
Oh, can't you do something? I'll apologize. I really think I was wrong. I can only rely on my mother-in-law now.
Finally, she begged for forgiveness in tears. But I just gave her a cold stare and didn't answer. Then she started shouting repeatedly.
I'm sorry. Please help me.
Anthony has asked you for help many times. But Margaret ignored everything. It's too selfish to only think of yourself. She broke down in tears after hearing my words, but I didn't care and kicked her out of the house. Afterwards, my son and his wife divorced, and I demanded $30,000 in compensation from his ex-wife and $10,000 from her former homeroom teacher, who was her affair partner. However, his ex-wife, who had used up all her savings, worked but was fired soon because of her selfish personality. She is currently working part-time in road construction and cleaning. My son still has to work overseas, but he promised to come back to meet Anthony as much as possible. Until Christopher returns, my husband and I will take care of our grandson. We are truly happy to see Anthony's growth and fill the gap that we couldn't meet before.
How was this story? Please subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.